Hello students, today we will discuss about the anatomy of submandibular gland. Now when you will see the submandibular gland, you know that there are three salivary glands. One is parotid gland, then you will have the submandibular gland and sublingual gland. So today we will discuss the submandibular gland. Now the submandibular gland is a mixed variety of salivary gland. The meaning of mix is that the secretions are mucus as well as serous, but predominantly it is a serous type of the gland. It pours the viscous secretion by the duct against the gravity. Now this is something is important. So you have to understand, when you will see the pathway of the duct, you will realize that duct is going from below to upward direction. So that's why it is taking the secretion against the gravity, and this is one of the reason that the submandibular gland is more prone to have the calculi as compared to parotid gland. Now, when you will see the location of submandibular gland, the submandibular gland is the anterior region of digastric triangle. Now, when you will see the digastric triangle is lies below the base of mandible, where you have the anterior belly of digastric and the posterior belly of digastric. These two bellies are connected with each other at the intermediate tendon, which is present on the hyoid bone. So this area is known as digastric triangle or submandibular triangle. In this triangle, you will find the submandibular gland. Now apart from that, this submandibular gland lies in the submandibular fossa of the mandible below the mylohyoid line. Now when you will see the mandible, in the mandible, this is the posterior view where you can see that these are the mylohyoid line. Now below the mylohyoid line, this is your submandibular fossa, and above you have the sublingual fossa. Now when you will take the section, and if you will see from the inner surface, this is the prominent mylohyoid line, and above you have the sublingual, and below and posteriorly you will have submandibular fossa. So this submandibular fossa occupy the submandibular gland. Now what are the parts of submandibular gland? Now when you will see the submandibular gland, it is having the large superficial and a small deep part, and both of these parts continue around the posterior border of mylohyoid. That means we are using the word superficial part and deep part of the submandibular gland in relation to the mylohyoid muscle. So it is a J-shaped muscle, and between this J you will have the mylohyoid muscle, and the fibers, those are passing between these two parts of the gland, dividing this into the superficial and deep part. Now the superficial part is larger and the deep part is smaller. The superficial part lies against the submandibular fossa of mandible, while the deep part passing through the gap between the two muscles, which are known as mylohyoid and hyoglossus. So when you will see this area of your submandibular region, you will realize that here you are having the outermost placement of a muscle is known as mylohyoid. Deep to mylohyoid you have the hyoglossus, and deep to hyoglossus you have genioglossus muscle. So you have to first keep this thing in mind, that if you will do the dissection layer by layer, you will find the first muscle is mylohyoid, then hyoglossus, and then midline is genioglossus. Now outside the mylohyoid you have the inner surface of the lower part of the mandible, which is known as submandibular fossa, because the mylohyoid muscle will go up to the mylohyoid line. So if you will take the section from here, you will find that there is a mylohyoid line on the inner side of mandible. So this is your mandible. On the mandible you will have the mylohyoid line, and this is the mandibular fossa. Now here you will have the mylohyoid muscle. So there is a gap between the bone and the muscle. Now this gap is here where you have the superficial part of the gland. Then you will have one more muscle which is arising from the hyoid bone and going into the tongue. Suppose this is the tongue, and this muscle is known as hyoglossus. Now again there is a gap between the muscle, between these two muscles, and this gap contains the deep part of your submandibular gland. So because it is a J-shaped muscle, so it is having superficial part on the lateral surface of mylohyoid, it is having deep part on the deep part of mylohyoid, and both parts are continue with each other against the posterior border of mylohyoid. So the deep part is present in the intermuscular space, which is also known as mylohyoid cleft. Now in this diagram you can appreciate that this is your muscle, this is your J-shaped gland, and in between the gland you can see that this is the cut section of the muscle. So the area which is on the lateral side is superficial, this is your posterior part of the gland, and this is the deep part of the gland. So this is the important concept before reading the gland, that there are superficial larger part and smaller deep part, and the relation of superficial and deep is in term of the muscle is known as mylohyoid muscle. Now what are the important features of superficial and deep part? So first we will discuss superficial part. The superficial part is having two ends and it is having the three surfaces. Now when you will see this gland, now this is, if we will cut into the two part, this will become the deep and this will become the superficial. Now in this superficial part, this is the anterior end, this is the posterior end of the gland. Now when you will see the surfaces, it is having the inferior surface. The inferior surface is also known as superficial surface, and this surface facing towards the skin. So the gland which is facing towards the skin is known as inferior surface or the superficial surface. Then you will have the lateral surface which is in the contact of the bone, that is the mandible, and the medial surface which is facing towards the midline. Now if you will see the ends, first we will discuss about the ends of the gland. So first is the anterior end of the superficial part. Now this anterior end extend up to the anterior belly of digastric. So you know that you have the anterior and posterior belly of digastric which are forming the boundaries of this submandibular region. So this anterior belly of digastric is the anterior limit for the anterior end, but when you will see the posterior end, it is in the contact of a very important ligament, and that is known as stylomandibular ligament. So this is the styloid process, and this is the angle of mandible. Between that you have the stylomandibular ligament. Now anterior to the stylomandibular ligament, you are having a gland. Now the gland which is present here is the submandibular gland, and you are having a gland posteriorly also. So this is the parotid gland, this is the submandibular gland. So this gland is separated from the parotid by the stylomandibular ligament. So this is a very important question for your exam, that which structure separates the parotid and submandibular gland. Answer is stylomandibular ligament. Posteriorly, the posterior end of this superficial part is grooved by the ascending limb of cervical part of facial artery, that we will discuss in the coming part of this lecture. So when you are reading the posterior end, there are two important features which you have to keep in mind, that it is separated from the parotid gland by a ligament is known as a stylomandibular ligament, and second thing, it is having a groove for the facial artery. Now what are the relations of different surfaces? So first is the inferior surface, or it is also known as superficial surface gland. Now when you will see the inferior surface of submandibular gland, it is the outside layer is the skin. Now deep to the skin you will have the superficial fascia, and in the superficial fascia you will have the subcutaneous muscle is known as platysma. Now deep to the platysma, you know that we have the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Now this investing layer of deep cervical fascia will split into the two parts, and that investing layer is going to form a capsule like arrangement, and it is going to cover its inferior and medial surface. So suppose this is your section of the mandible where you will have this mylohyoid line, and this is your gland. Now this gland is having the three surfaces. This is the inferior surface, this is the medial surface, and this is the lateral surface. So what will happen, that the fascia will split and it will go something like this. So this splitting of the cervical fascia is covering the medial surface and the inferior surface. Clear? Now, the important thing is that you are also having the relation of the facial vein, and it is also having a relation with the cervical branch of facial nerve. So, these are the two more structures, those are present on the inferior aspect, but the important thing which you have to understand that facial vein is a superficial relation, but we will see the artery is having the deep relation with the gland. Now, in this diagram, this is your area below the mandible, where you can see the cut margin of the deep fascia. After that, you can see the submandibular gland here. So, what are the inferior relation or the superficial relation of the superficial surface? First is the skin. Below the skin, you will have the superficial fascia and platysma. Deep to that, you will have the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Apart from that, you are having the two more structure. This surface is crossed by the facial vein. You know that facial vein is going to make a common facial vein with the anterior branch of the retromandibular vein, and you also having the cervical branch of facial nerve. Then, apart from these structure, the superficial or the inferior surface is having very important relation, and that is the submandibular lymph node. Now, in this diagram, this is your inferior surface. Here you can see that this area is having the submandibular lymph node. Now, these lymph node lies deep to the deep fascia, and sometimes these lymph node may embedded inside the your superficial part of submandibular gland. Now, because they are sometimes goes deep within the substance of the gland, so whenever there is a carcinoma occurs of the lateral border of the tongue, which is actually draining into the submandibular lymph node, in that condition, this gland has to remove as a radical neck dissection. So, this is again the question of your exam, that why the submandibular gland has to remove in case of the cancer of the lateral margin of tongue. The only answer is that lateral margin of tongue drain into the submandibular group of lymph nodes, and submandibular group of lymph node embedded deep within the substance of the gland. That is why the gland has to remove along with the lymph node as a radical neck dissection. Then you have the relations of the lateral surface of the gland. Now, when you will have the superficial part of the gland, I told you that superficial part lies into this fossa, and that fossa is known as submandibular fossa. So, if you will take the section, so this is your bone, and inside the bone this is your mylohyoid line. So, here you will have the fascia, and in this area you are having the gland. So, the gland is having the three surfaces. This is the inferior surface, this is the medial surface, and this is the lateral surface. So, what you will realize that this lateral surface is in the contact with the inner side of your mandible below the mylohyoid line, which is known as your submandibular fossa. So, here you can see that in this diagram that this is the mylohyoid muscle cut margin, but this will be the area of submandibular gland which lies into this surface of the mandible. Now, apart from the mandible, this area is also overlapping the medial pterygoid insertion. Now, in this diagram, you can see that this is the inner side of the angle of mandible. Now, in this region, you are having the insertion of your medial pterygoid. So, this is the overlapping where the insertion is covered by or overlaid by the some area of the lateral part of your submandibular gland. Now, this part is being also deeply grooved by the facial artery. So, we have now learned that facial artery comes in contact at 2 points with the submandibular gland. First is the posterior end, and second is the lateral surface. But these both are the part of superficial part of the gland, not the deep part of the gland. So, this is again the question of your exam, that facial artery comes in contact with posterior end of submandibular gland and lateral surface of submandibular gland, which both are the part of superficial part of the gland. Here the artery lies between the bone and gland, and it hook under the mandible to reach the face at the front of masseter muscle. So, we will discuss this. Now, here in this diagram you can understand first in the origin of the facial artery. So, this is the external carotid. From the external carotid you are having the origin of facial artery. Now, here you can see that it is making a loop. Now, this is a HS shape loop. Now this S is arising from the external carotid, and this is the terminal point of the S, and this terminal point is here, that is the junction of the base of mandible and anterior border of the masseter muscle, where you can palpate or feel the pulsation of facial artery. Now in this whole part of the facial artery, you can see that there are two spaces. One is this space, second is this space. Now you have to understand that this is the anterior part of the loop, and this anterior part of the loop is occupied by the base of mandible. The anterior part of the loop is occupied by the base of mandible. But this posterior part of the loop is occupied by the submandibular gland. The posterior loop is occupied by the submandibular gland. So submandibular gland comes here in this area. Now you have to keep this concept in mind, that this loop is arising and going in a forward direction. It is not just that the loop is arising and coming in the same plane. It is, after taking origin, is going in the forward direction. So first, as soon as the loop will arise, it will make a groove on the posterior end. After making a groove on the posterior end, it comes on the area between the gland and the bone, and then it again make a loop, and through this loop it will come out on the lateral surface of mandible. So you have to understand that from the point of origin till it comes on the face, the S-shaped course of the facial artery is having the relation with the submandibular gland at two places. One is the posterior end and second is at the lateral surface. So the facial artery is related at twice. First is at the posterior end, and second it descends on the lateral surface of the gland, and here it ultimately it will reach to the anteroinferior angle of the masseter. Clear? Now the next relation of is about the medial surface of superficial part. Now the medial surface is an extensive surface, and its relations are described in three different areas. Now when you will see, this is the medial surface of the superficial part. Now this medial surface of superficial part is divided into the three parts: anterior relations of the medial surface, posterior relation of the medial surface, and the intermediate relation of the medial surface of superficial part. So the anterior part, when you will see the anterior part, anteriormost part comes in relation with the mylohyoid muscle. So here is the mylohyoid muscle, and this mylohyoid muscle is separated from the gland by the mylohyoid nerve and vessels. Now what are the posterior part relation? Now posterior part relations, you have to first understand this diagram. Now what is the orientation of this diagram? Now this is the diagram of my left side. Now in this diagram you can see this is the cut section of the mandible. So this left half of the mandible has been removed. Now after removing the left side of the mandible, you are able to see the mylohyoid muscle. So we have removed the mylohyoid. After that you are able to see the left side of my hyoglossus. So this is the left side of the hyoglossus, which you can see here. So first you have to identify the hyoglossus muscle. Now the second thing which you have to understand in this diagram, as soon as you will remove the mylohyoid and when you will approach the hyoglossus, the area or the gap between the mylohyoid and hyoglossus is having some important relations or the structure. So what these structures are present in this gap? So you can see that this is a one tendon is coming here. Now this tendon which is coming here is the connection between the styloid process and tongue, and that is known as styloglossus muscle. Now below the styloglossus muscle you can see that there is a yellow color nerve is present, and this nerve is nothing but it is a lingual nerve. Now below the lingual nerve you will have the suspension of submandibular ganglia. Now below the ganglia in lower part you will find a nerve, and this nerve is known as your 12th cranial nerve or hypoglossal nerve. This hypoglossal nerve run along with the lingual vein. So you can see the lingual vein is running along with the nerve. So you have to first keep this thing in mind that when you are doing the dissection in this area, as soon as you will remove the mandible, then you will remove the superficial part of the submandibular gland, then you will remove the mylohyoid muscle, and you will come into this area. Now this area you are able to first identify the hyoglossus. So this is the border of the hyoglossus, and then in the upper part you will have the styloglossus muscle, then you will have the lingual nerve, then you will have the submandibular ganglia, then you will have the hypoglossal nerve along with the lingual vein. Clear? So these are the structure from above downward. What is the sequence? Again I will repeat the sequence because the sequence is asked so many times in the exam. So the first is the styloglossus muscle, then lingual nerve, then you will have hypoglossal nerve, and lastly the lingual vein. So it starts from the styloglossus muscle and the lowermost structure is lingual vein. Now what will happen with the posterior part of the submandibular gland? Now posterior part of the submandibular gland will come somewhere here. Now in this area, when you will put the posterior part of the gland, it is coming in relation with these all structure. So what these all structure I told you, the styloglossus muscle, and along with the styloglossus you are having the stylohyoid ligament also. You have the glossopharyngeal nerve. Now this is something is important, that all these structures which are here actually separating this gland from your pharynx. Now pharynx, you know that it is having the constrictors, superior, middle and inferior constrictor. So in this diagram you can see that this area is somewhere represent the middle constrictor part of your pharynx. Now what will happen, that this part of the gland which is lying on the lateral wall of the pharynx is remains separated. That means the structure between the posterior part of the gland and the pharynx. So these are the structure which are present between the pharynx and the posterior part of the gland. So first is the styloglossus, then glossopharyngeal nerve, and then hypoglossal nerve with the first part of lingual artery. Now here you can see that this is the first part of lingual artery, and this loop of the lingual artery is present in relation with the nerve, and the nerve is your hypoglossal nerve. So these above structures separates the posterior part of the submandibular gland from the pharynx, and mainly we are talking about middle constrictor. So when you are writing the relation of the posterior part of the tongue, you have to keep this thing in mind, that posterior part of the submandibular gland is basically related with the middle constrictor, which is actually the lateral wall of your pharynx. Then in these two diagrams, again if you will see the orientation, that how the posterior part of the submandibular gland is related with the structure. Here you can see that this is the cut part of the posterior part of submandibular gland. Now this cut part is projecting behind the free margin of mylohyoid muscle, and this part is now come in contact somewhere here with the lateral wall of the pharynx. So between the lateral wall of pharynx and this cut portion of submandibular gland, you are having the structures like styloglossus muscle, stylohyoid ligament, glossopharyngeal nerve, hypoglossal nerve. Clear? Then part of the relations, you have to first understand that when we are talking about the J-shaped orientation of this gland, it looks like that both superficial and deep part are in the same plane. But when you will see the actual presentation here in the submandibular region, you will realize that the middle portion of your superficial part and the deep portion is in the same plane. It is not overlapping each other. When you will see from the side, it is looking like that this deep portion is overlapping this part of the gland. But it is not like that. It is like something like this. It is a twisted part. The deep part is bit twisted. Now because of this reason, what will happen? The middle portion of your superficial part and deep part are almost related with the hyoglossus muscle. So always the confusion is there that why hyoglossus muscle is related with the superficial part. Because we are reading this again and again that hyoglossus muscle is deep to the mylohyoid and deep part lies in a gap between the mylohyoid and hyoglossus. But here you are reading the middle or intermediate part of the superficial surface which is related with the hyoglossus. Why it is related with the hyoglossus? Because these two deep and superficial part which are actually divided by the mylohyoid are not overlapping each other. It is actually the twisted, and this is the end of your posterior free margin of the mylohyoid, and in this condition what will happen that this portion is also touch the your lateral surface of hyoglossus. So here this is the only thing which always confuse the students, that how the hyoglossus is related with the superficial part of the gland. Now when you will have the relation with the hyoglossus, but obviously the structure which are present on the lateral surface of hyoglossus automatically become relation with the medial surface of your gland. So what are they? I just told you styloglossus, lingual nerve with the ganglia, and hypoglossal nerve with the lingual vein. So here you can see that this area is the area which is related with the your intermediate part of superficial part of the submandibular gland. The next, here you can see in this diagram, you can very well appreciate that this is the cut section of your mylohyoid muscle. Now you can see that this mylohyoid is having the posterior free margin which end here only. Now what will happen now, that this remaining portion of your superficial surface which is representing your intermediate part of the medial surface of the superficial gland, is when you will put it in the position, you will realize that it also faces medially and it will touch the hyoglossus muscle. Now what about the deep part? You know that it is easy to understand that this is the deep part, and this deep part is present between the two muscle layer. One is here is the hyoglossus, and one muscle which is here is the mylohyoid. So there is a gap between the two muscle, mylohyoid which is on the lateral side and hyoglossus on the medial side, and between them you have the deep part of the submandibular gland. So when you will have the deep part, what are the relations laterally? But obviously mylohyoid, medially is the hyoglossus because it is present in a intermuscular gap. Now what are the relation above? Now above you will have the lingual nerve along with the submandibular ganglia, and below you will have relation with the hypoglossal nerve. So in this diagram you can see that the deep part will come here. Now once the deep part will come here, you will have the lingual nerve with the ganglia above and the hypoglossal nerve with the vein below. Clear? Now again I will tell you that these are the relations of deep part, and we also discussed the same relation with the superficial part but in intermediate region. So when you will have the medial surface relations of your superficial part, we have divided those relation into the three part: anterior relation, intermediate or middle relation, and posterior relation. Now this area, the middle relations or some of the posterior relations, are very similar to the deep relations of submandibular gland. So whenever you are reading the relations of submandibular gland, it is highly confusing, but you have to understand that the gland is not overlapping the superficial and deep part, but it is a twisted appearance. Now because of the twisted appearance of the gland or arrangement around the mylohyoid muscle, what will happen that this whole area come in contact with the hyoglossus muscle also. Because in this diagram you can see that this mylohyoid muscle is end at one point, while the remaining area which is here is now come in contact with the posterior part of the hyoglossus muscle. So this is the important thing to understand, and whenever you are reading the relations, you have to keep this thing in mind, that superior most is the styloglossus, then you will have lingual nerve with submandibular ganglia, and below you will have the 12th cranial nerve, that is hypoglossal, along with the deep lingual vein. Now, what about the submandibular duct? The submandibular duct is also known as Wharton's duct. It is 5 centimeter long, and the important thing which you have to keep in mind that this duct emerges from the deep part, but when you are talking about the starting of or the beginning of the duct, it begins very early. What is the meaning of this? That this is the point of its emerging. That means from this point the duct has been come out. But when you will see the formation or beginning of the duct begins early here only, and this part of the duct which is here is not visible because this part is present inside the parenchyma of the gland itself. So, it starts from the medial surface of the superficial part. So, this is the important thing, that the gland formation already occurred in the superficial part, and then it will make it turn around the posterior border of the mylohyoid muscle, and ultimately it will emerge out from the deep surface. Clear? Now, why this part or this turn is important? Because you have the question which is very commonly asked, that why the stone formation or calculi or silolithiasis is more common in the submandibular gland. So, anatomical reason which is most susceptible is this turning, and this is known as genu of the duct. So, the genu of submandibular duct is the most common cause of the formation or more chances of the formation of stone in the submandibular duct, which are 90% more as compared to the parotid gland. So, the duct makes a loop around the posterior border of the mylohyoid, and ultimately it emerges from the deep part, and then it runs forward and upward direction. So, you can see that it is going in the forward and upward direction. So, the secretion will go against the gravity. Now, what is the course? In its course, it first run with the mylohyoid muscle and hyoglossus muscle, but obviously because the deep part is present in this intermuscular cleft, so duct is also present in this cleft, but as it will go ahead, the relation comes between the sublingual and genioglossus. Now, in this part, you can see that this is your sublingual gland and this is your genioglossus muscle. So, what will happen, that this duct which is present here is first related with the mylohyoid and hyoglossus, but in this anterior part it is related between, or it lies between the sublingual gland and the genioglossus muscle. Now, the important thing is that it is having an important relation with the lingual nerve. So, first it lies below the lingual nerve and above the hypoglossal nerve at the entry margin of through the hyoglossus muscle. The lingual nerve cross the duct from lateral to medial side. Now, this is very important question, that what is the relation of lingual nerve with submandibular duct. Now, when you will see this diagram, you have to understand the relation, that in this diagram you can see that first the lingual nerve lies above the duct. So, duct and lingual nerve are above each other. So, this is the lingual nerve, this is the duct. But as the both are running forward, what will happen? The duct is visible here and the nerve is going on the lateral side. In the next part, what will happen? The nerve is now appear in the lower portion, it will make a loop and it will enter into the tongue. So, suppose this is the nerve and this is the duct. So, nerve is running above the duct, then it comes on the lateral side of the duct, then it go below the duct, and ultimately it will come on the medial side of the duct. So, the nerve has to come from above to the medial side of the duct. So, the easiest way was that the duct is remain downward, nerve is above and it can come to the medial side, but it is not as simple as that. The nerve is making a loop around the duct. So, how it is making a loop? So, it is first comes on the lateral side of the duct, then it will come on the lower part of the duct, and ultimately it will make a turn and comes on the medial side of the duct. So this is the important question for your exam, that the lingual nerve is taking a loop from lateral to medial side of submandibular duct. Now, where is the opening of the duct? So the duct opens in the floor of your mouth on the sublingual papilla beside the frenulum of the tongue. You know the frenulum is a midline structure. So this is the frenulum of the tongue. On both the side of the frenulum, you will have a dilated part is known as papilla. On this papilla, this duct will open. And again, the important anatomical landmark is that this orifice is the narrowest part of the duct. Now, what about the nerve supply of submandibular gland? The parasympathetic supply, it is responsible for the watery secretion. Sympathetic supply is responsible for the sticky mucus secretion. Apart from that, the sympathetic supply is motor to the blood vessel, so it causes vasoconstriction. Now, when you will talk about the parasympathetic supply, the preganglionic fibers, parasympathetic fibers, you know that they comes from the superior salivatory nucleus, which is present in the pons, then they will join the nervous intermediates, then ultimately facial nerve, which is giving a branch is known as chorda tympanic nerve in the middle ear. This chorda tympanic will come out to join the lingual nerve. Now, here you can see that this is your chorda tympani nerve, and this is your lingual nerve, which is a branch of your mandibular nerve. Now, this lingual nerve is going downwards, and in this lingual nerve, the fibers of chorda tympani will join, and ultimately these fibers will relay into the submandibular ganglia, which is present in the submandibular region itself, and the postganglionic fibers are come out directly, and then they will supply the gland. When we are talking about the sympathetic fiber, the source of sympathetic fiber is the superior cervical ganglia. From the superior cervical ganglia, the postganglionic fibers comes along with the artery. And what is the name of artery here? Is the facial artery. So the plexus around the facial artery is carrying the postganglionic sympathetic fibers from the superior cervical ganglia. Those will supply the submandibular gland. Lastly, the lymphatic drainage. Lymphatic drainage is in the submandibular lymph node, and ultimately it will enter into the deep cervical group of lymph node, which is known as jugulo-digastric lymph node. Now, there is a one important clinical anatomy which I told you, that why formation of calculi, that is silolithiasis, is more common in the submandibular as compared to the parotid gland. So there are few reasons. The first reason is that the duct is having two bands, which I told you. One band is here, which is inside the gland along the posterior border of mylohyoid, and second band is here. So one band is at the posterior border of mylohyoid, second is near the duct orifice. Another reason is that saliva flow against the gravity, then the orifice is smaller. The orifice is smaller than that of the parotid gland. So because of these reasons, what will happen, that the flow of your saliva or the secretions is very slow, and they will remain, or the stasis of the secretion is there for the longer time duration as compared to the parotid gland duct. So this is all what you should know about the submandibular gland. When you are reading, you first know that what are the parts of the submandibular gland, what is the orientation of different surfaces of the submandibular gland, what are the peculiarities of the duct, because the duct is not straight, it is having a curved course, and lastly the nerve supply of submandibular gland. So this is all for the class. Thank you.